Hello and welcome to Lady Dynamite Creates. I'm Tiffany, and I hope you all had an absolutely spooktacular Halloween. Today we're diving into something extra magical. I'm bringing Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas to life, but with a twist. This Sally is getting a total makeover, complete with a frilly ball gown that'll have her ready for any Halloween ball. Enough chit-chat. Let's get comfy and get crafting. For the base doll, I went with Frankie Stein from my stock box. Her delicate hand poses are just perfect for Sally's look, so she's the lucky pick. I think she came from a customizer's lot because she's already prepped and good to go. I just need to pop her head off and we're ready to dive into this transformation. With a fresh paint job on her scalp, I dive right into the reroot with some brushed yarn magic. I'm just doing the hairline and part line for now since I tend to go a little wild with the rerooting. I'll add wefts later to get that perfect volume and flow. Now on to the main event, Sally's ball gown. I'm going for that extra fluffy look, which means one thing: loads and loads of tulle. To get the perfect ruffles, I'm using a fun technique where I fold a 2.5-inch squares of tulle to create a beautiful textured effect. Then I stitch the tips together to form one long ruffle. It took forever to fold and sew all those squares, but the effect is totally worth it. In the end, I went through a whopping 1.5 yards of tulle for this skirt. Starting with the base of the skirt, I kicked things off with a full circle design, but after testing the drape with all those layers, I decided to switch it up to a half circle for a better flow. First, I pinned down a simple gathered ruffle with a jagged edge for that perfectly worn-in Sally look. Then it was time for the showstoppers, 3 rows of those textured square ruffles layered above it. It's all coming together and oh so fluffy. To finish this part of the dress, I added the waistband and a ribbon drawstring for a secure and adjustable fit. Once everything was in place, I stitched up the back seam and voila, the base structure was all set. But when I finally put the dress on the doll, it still wasn't quite there. So off camera, I made a few tweaks, added even more ruffles, gave her a flowing train. Now it's looking like the gown I imagined. I even toyed with an asymmetrical look, but that idea ended up on the cutting room floor. This project was about going where the inspiration led me, and that first look just wasn't it. For the overskirt, I just gathered the straight edges and attached it to the waistband, placing the half moon section between my marked points and then the gathers right outside of them. This gives it an elegant swagged drape that's super flattering. Check out how beautifully this came together. I'm in love with all the poof. The layers just add so much character, and the fabric from Spoonflower, what do you think? Is the perfect combo, right? For the bodice, I drafted the pattern and cut each color from separate pieces this time around. I'm super careful about the order of operations to make sure everything attaches smoothly. With the skirts, I skipped that step because I knew the multiple seams would mess with the drape, but with a fitted bodice, I can have a little bit more fun without worrying about that. I ended up remaking the bodice a second time since this chiffon is so delicate it needed a bit more structure, so I used interface pieces for that extra support. Once the bodice is all stitched up, it's time to pop on that Velcro closure. For the draping across the shoulders, I channeled my inner Princess Belle and opted for a lovely wrap. I took an extra long piece of tulle and gathered it right in the center. Then I sewed along the top edge of the tulle to the bodice, stopping at the side seams to leave an opening for her arms. I gather and I tack the ends in the center back. Check out that draping. I ended up tacking it at the base of the arms too because the tulle just wouldn't stay put. It added that extra touch of elegance to the gown. This dress definitely needs a little bit more pizzazz, so I've got some fun additions in mind. First up is Jack's iconic bow tie. I modeled and 3D printed the bat bow tie, then painted it black with cute white accents. Let me tell you, painting those thin lines was trickier than I expected. Luckily, the wavy design helped hide any little hiccups, making it look perfectly intentional. I glued the finished bow tie right to the front of the bodice, and it just adds the right amount of charm. At first, I crafted this elaborate deadly nightshade ornament for her waist, but it ended up feeling a bit too overwhelming, so I switched gears and made a cute little button featuring Jack's head instead. No worries about the nightshade ornament though, we'll find the perfect spot for it later. This dress is finally complete and I can't wait to see how it looks on Sally. The gown is totally fit for the Halloween princess that she is. By the way, the tie button and Deadly Nightshade 3D files are available to all of my Patreon supporters. Accessory time! Lately I've been on a shoemaking spree and I knew Sally needed something truly special, so I designed her some adorable patchwork heels with these cute little button details. Once they were printed, I had to clean them up a bit since the supports left some rough edges, but after a little sanding they were ready for their makeover. I mixed up shades of desaturated pink, yellow, and turquoise to match the fabric of the dress, and I painted the soles and stitches black for that perfect pop. And guess what? If you're interested in snagging a pair of these fabulous shoes, head over to my Patreon. They'll be the November tier reward for my Dynamite tier subscribers. Speaking of Patreon, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to all of my incredible supporters there. Seriously, you all make this creative journey so much more special. Your enthusiasm and encouragement keep me inspired and motivated, and I couldn't do it without you. Thank you for being such an amazing part of this adventure. Angel Bookwalter, Awkward Bird, B. Burnett, Booney Wah, Deborah Sweeney, Hallie Wield, Jay Zur, Stephanie L, Dancing Johari, Delicious, Cat C, Bex Mini Studio, Josephine, Kitsy, K. Whip L, Lindsay, The Oak Magpie, Tara Ann. If you're into dolls and all things creative, come join me on Patreon. I'd love to have you along for the ride as part of this creative crew. Once I finished the base coats, I got to work shading with pastels and adding fun patterns to some of those patches. The shoes turned out amazing and matched the dress perfectly. Now for that dress embellishment turned hair ornament. I started with the 3D printed container of Deadly Nightshade. After giving a base coat of black, I went to town with multiple layers of dry brushing in shades of gray. I'm super careful to not overdo it with the dry brushing though, because the label is actually carved into the model. And I want to keep those letters nice and bold. With each light brushing, you can see the details slowly emerge. I made a backing of felt and began gluing all the pieces in place. I use various flowers and bits, and of course, I do this out of frame. I realized that Sally needed one more adorable accessory. Zero, of course. This little ghost pup is the perfect companion to add some extra charm. Alright, it's time for the face-up. Here's a peek at all the materials I'm using to repaint her, but for the specific brands, make sure to check out the description box. Once I've primed her surface with 3 coats of Mr. Super Clear UV Cut Flat, it's finally time to start sketching in her features. You know what's funny? I originally started brainstorming for this doll before I even began working on Amethyst. I ran into a few bumps with my first ideas for a skirt, which led me to shelve the project until I had a better concept. After the video for my Fallout doll didn't perform as well as I'd hoped, I found myself spiraling into a bit of self-doubt. I was really in my head questioning my creative choices. But after finishing Amethyst, I decided to pick this girl back up with fresh eyes and a more positive artistic mindset. I landed on a dress idea that I absolutely adored, and while the process came with its own set of challenges, they felt more manageable this time around. I embraced each hiccup as part of the creative journey rather than a setback. Honestly, I think the shift in perspective made all the difference. In the end, I'm really proud of how this doll turned out. The evolution of the design really reflects my growth as an artist, and I can't wait to share her with you. It's been a rewarding experience, and I hope you love her as much as I do. This doll is of course my own twist on the classic Tim Burton character. I'm having a blast taking some artistic liberties with her design. I'm leaning into more contouring and shading, plus adding a mix of colors to give her skin that extra dimension. My goal is to blend my repaint style with that iconic Tim Burton stop motion aesthetic. It's about capturing that slightly eerie vibe. Now let's dive into the frustration I had with her eyes. I really wanted to draw her iris pupil in my style, but make them a lot smaller than usual. Sounds simple, right? Well, it turned out to be a much bigger challenge than I expected. Each time I thought I had it right, I noticed something slightly off. Maybe the shape was uneven or even the placement was off. So I ended up going through countless attempts, redrawing them over and over and over again. But I realized getting those eyes right would really make or break her, so I had to get it right. There's something magical about how a doll's eyes can convey emotion, and I wanted hers to tell a story. To me, Sally is such a wonderful warrior, so I knew I had to give her those pulled-in brows and an upward glance. It's essential to capturing her essence. I want her to convey that sweet mix of concern and hopefulness. So after many tries, I eventually found that sweet spot in placement and proportion, and by the time I finally got it right, it just felt like a huge victory. There's something so rewarding about nailing those little details after putting in so much effort. When I first sketched her lashes, I tried to stick with that iconic shape Sally has in the movie, but it just didn't mesh well with the look I had envisioned for the doll. So I decided to wipe the slate clean and give it a fresh start. I went for a hybrid style this time, adding a V shape to only the first set of lashes and keeping the following ones more traditional. This way I captured the spirit of the original while putting my own twist on it. I'm really happy with the change. The new lashes give her a much more glamorous look that fits the fancier outfit perfectly. After finally nailing the eyes, it's time to add those finishing touches. I used white watercolor to brighten up her stitches, which was a detail I missed on my first Sally repaint, so I was determined to get it right this time. When sketching her stitches, I kept them softer, letting the grays act as shadows to make the white pop even more. Next, I added catchlights and highlights to her eyes, and just like that, her face-up was complete. She turned out absolutely lovely, and I couldn't be happier with how everything came together. It's such a thrill to see her character shine through with those final details. No Sally would be complete without her signature stitches. After giving her body a nice sanding and a good spray with Mr. Super Clear, it's time to dive into the delightful task of adding those stitches. Now, since her clothing cover most of it in the movie, I'm left to play a bit of detective. I take some educated guesses on their placement and get sketching and shading with my watercolor pencils and pastels. I can't wait to see how she comes together with all those details. Alright, time to finish up adding her hair. I made wefts from the brushed out yarn and started gluing them on row by row. Of course I'm using hot glue because I can't wait around for regular glue to dry. I'm way too impatient for that. So here I am burning my fingers as I go. But hey, a few singed fingertips are totally worth it to give Sally fabulous hair. With her head full of gorgeous hair, it's styling time. I'm going for a half updo with twisted sides and a soft side swept fringe, something sweet but elegant. Once everything's styled just right, I add her hair ornament, paired with a broken spiderweb earring I repurposed as the perfect spooky accessory. I pin it in place and wow, she looks amazing. I can hardly wait for the reveal. Here she is, all ready for a Halloween ball. I'm thrilled with how she turned out. It's been such a blast putting my own spin on this iconic character. And guess what? Sally's officially up for grabs in my Etsy shop, so if you're ready to welcome her into your collection, swing by and check her out. You'll also find some other unique creations like my 3D printed shoes waiting for you there. Thank you for joining me on this creative adventure. Your support truly means the world to me. And remember, always be creating.